It's been about 5 days now since the iPhone 15 was released. Today I want to tell you about my experience with the iPhone 15 Pro Max so far, my first impressions and what I've noticed in using it in my day-to-day life. This is not going to be a full review, that's coming later. I just want to tell you about my experience so far and my first impressions. When Apple announced their switch to titanium, I was super happy because I really didn't like the weight of the old iPhone Pros. I was using an iPhone 13 mini before, so it was a very welcome change and I was looking forward to the weight. Taking it out of the box, it really feels great in the hand. It's not as sharp on the corners, it feels a little more rounded without looking more round, so they still kept the same nice design language but still made it feel better in the hand. I really like the color options even though they're a little more muted. I feel like they look really clean and minimalistic. I especially like the natural titanium and the black titanium, so I went for the natural titanium to have something different compared to all my other black devices, but the blue and white look great as well. They're really all very nice and clean looking colors. In the hands it feels pretty big, especially compared to my iPhone 13 mini, but it's actually quite manageable. I was expecting it to feel even worse going up to the Max, but it feels actually quite okay. It's a little smaller than the iPhone 14 Pro Max, so that probably helps, and also as I said, the rounded size make it feel great in the hand. Overall it feels really premium and it feels like it's kind of the best version of this flat-sided design. Let's talk about the biggest improvements Apple has made with the iPhone 15 Pro Max, and you probably already know about them, but they are in the cameras, the action button and the USB-C port. Let's start with the easy one. The USB-C port is so nice. It felt a little weird in the beginning, I have to say, plug a USB-C cable into my iPhone, but it's really nice that all of my Apple devices now can be charged with the same cable, except for my Apple Watch, but of course that doesn't have a port, so it's a little harder to do. The iPhone 15 Pros also have USB 3 support, so you can transfer data at faster speeds, but I have to say that I haven't really had an opportunity to try that yet. I just don't usually transfer data to or from my iPhone, so it's not really that important to me, but just being able to charge it with USB-C has been great. I can now finally get rid of all my lightning cables. I only have my AirPods Max left that still are on lightning, and also my Magic Keyboard and Magic Trackpad, but I'm sure that they will change over soon. Next up, let's talk about the action button, and this is actually kind of a weird one because I tried to make it work in the beginning and I tried using it for the camera or for shortcuts as well. Now I just went back to using it for mute just because I'm very much used to starting the camera from the control center or just swiping left on the home screen, so I'm not really sure if it really saves me a lot of time. And also on the Pro Max, it's in kind of an awkward spot if you're right-handed, so it's kind of hard to reach. Yeah, I'll maybe experiment a little bit more, but for now it hasn't really made a huge impact for me. But I have to say, for everyone that used to use the mute switch to kind of fidget around, it still works with the action button just because it has great haptics. So when you change to silent and back, it has kind of different vibrations and it's still very satisfying. Alright, so let's talk about the cameras. As I said, I came from an iPhone 13 mini, which kind of had the same camera system as the iPhone 12 Pro Max, so this should be 3 years of improvement for me, and I have to say I really noticed it. I usually don't like iPhone photos because they seem a little over sharpened, and the biggest improvement for me this year is that the photos look more natural and better in every way, especially also compared to iPhone 14 Pro photos that I've seen. The weird thing is that on the 15 Pro, the camera system, like the hardware, is exactly the same as on the 14 Pro, and the 15 Pro Max only gets the 5x lens, so it's not really a big improvement in terms of hardware, but it seems like they have improved the software a lot and it really shows. Images look a little more natural and less processed, and the HDR is not as bad anymore. Another cool thing is that you can now activate portrait mode for any picture that you've taken without having to go into the special mode, and it also looks much better. It does a really good job with even smaller hairs now. I've tried it for myself and I've been quite happy actually with the results. Of course, it's still just an iPhone photo with fake blur in the background, but it does a really good job now, to the point where I think, especially just looking at it on the iPhone screen, it's really hard to tell the difference. In general, I'm not the biggest fan of iPhone cameras usually, just because I don't really like the look that it gave, but I have to say that I'm quite pleasantly surprised with them. Of course, I'm still gonna use a real camera if I want to have the best quality possible, but they're much better than I thought. I wasn't really expecting a lot, even though I went for the Pro Max, but I didn't go for it just because of the camera, so I'm quite happy. It's also cool that you now get 24 megapixel photos, so you get higher quality files right out of the camera instead of the 12 megapixel that you used to get on the iPhone 14 Pro. Now that we've covered all of the new features, let's talk a little bit more about the real world experience of using it day to day. I have to say that the biggest improvement for me with this iPhone going from the 13 mini to the 15 Pro Max is the screen. Of course, this will not apply to every one of you, and there are benefits to the smaller iPhone 13 mini screen that I've talked about in my review, which which you can check that out if you want, but I will also do a separate comparison between the two. But having the bigger screen also comes with a lot of advantages. I just felt like I could use my phone more often to get things done, to write emails, to look for stuff online, where with the iPhone 13 mini I would have just gone for my iPad or MacBook instead. It's also really nice to be able to show photos to other people on this just because they look much better if they're bigger. And I also really like ProMotion. Of course, ProMotion is only really noticeable if you have it and then go back to a 60Hz screen. But now that my MacBook and my iPad both have ProMotion, it's really nice to also have it on my iPhone because it just makes it feel a lot smoother in general. Now when I go back to my iPhone 13 mini, I really notice it, even though I never noticed it before when I only had that. Something else that was new for me is the dynamic island. You don't really notice it a lot just because it doesn't really do a lot. Whenever it does something, it's really satisfying and nice to use. Of course, that's especially true if you have two things going on at once. So for example, if you have a timer and are listening to music at the same time, that's something that it does much faster than before. If you're only doing one thing though, like just listening to music, it's not really that helpful. It just looks a lot nicer than the notch. Something else that I quite like though, and I'm quite surprised by it, is the always on display. I didn't really think that I would like it just because it looks very close to when the iPhone is actually on, but now actually using it, it's really nice. I can always see the time, I can see whether I have new notifications, and I feel like it makes me wake up my phone less often, so I quite like it. I didn't expect to like it, but it's really cool. Something else that I've noticed, again, this is especially true if you're coming from one of the mini phones, but the speakers are insanely good on this phone. I sometimes use my phone to listen to audiobooks or podcasts just from the speakers, and it's a big improvement from the iPhone 13 mini. I don't know how much of an improvement it is over the 14 Pro Max, but for me, going from the 13 mini to this, it's insane to hear how good the speakers are. And last but not least, even though this is kind of hard to say after just 5 days, but the battery life has been really great. In the first 2 or 3 days, I've used it a lot and I've really drained the battery quickly. But now going back to a more normal routine, I'm never able to drain the battery in 1 day. And it's really nice to just have that power reserve. In terms of the overheating issues that some people are having, I don't have them, so I can't really say anything about it. My iPhone 13 mini overheated a lot more, and this is actually quite a cool phone so far. So after 5 days, what would be my first verdict? Well, first up, I have to say that in general, this is a really nice phone and I really enjoyed it a lot. I didn't really like the shiny sides on the older Pro phone, so I'm really happy that it's matte now, and the titanium looks great and it feels great in the hand. In general, it just feels like Apple now has perfected this flat edge design to the point where it not only looks great, but it also feels really good in the hand, and at the same time it's lighter and more durable than before. That being said, I don't think that it's a big upgrade over the 14 Pro or 14 Pro Max, so you have to decide for yourself if you really want to upgrade if you're on one of those phones. For anyone that's on an older phone, maybe an iPhone 12 Pro or Pro Max or iPhone 13 non-Pro or 13 mini, I think this is going to be a huge upgrade and it's really going to be worth it. For anyone with a phone older than the iPhone 12, I think this is definitely going to be a huge upgrade. And if you're comfortable with spending that much on a smartphone, it's definitely worth it. If not, maybe just look at the iPhone 15 or 15 Plus models because they got a huge upgrade this year as well. Alright, so those are my first impressions, just kind of a shorter video, not really a full review, but I hope you still enjoyed it. If you did, please leave a like and subscribe to my channel. I'm really happy to be so close to 1,000 subscribers, so help me get there if you're not subscribed yet. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.